So far, we have sought an answer to the question of why Hamlet, and found that it lies in the essential and universal nature of Shakespeare's character psychology. We then explored the many tools and resources an actor might use to analyze Hamlet through Shakespeare's words. Now, we approach the second part of that binary formula of analysis and interpretation, interviewing two actors who have taken on the role to get a window into their process and their respective interpretations. Laura Welsh Berg is a classical actress based in Cleveland, Ohio. She's worked in regional theaters across the country for over a decade, including the Idaho Shakespeare Festival, Lake Tahoe Shakespeare Festival, and the Great Lakes Theater in Cleveland, where she is an artistic associate. Berg also teaches theater at Baldwin Wallace University and sat down with us to talk about her experience playing the role of Hamlet.
Okay, so what is the first thing you do when you start working on a role? Like when the first thing you do when you get the text?
So the first thing that I always do is actually, sounds very basic to say, but just reread the script. Because no matter how many times I've done it before, how many times I may have seen it, whether I love it, whether it's one that I'm less familiar with, I just find that a fresh take, especially reading it through with the eyes of my character, is really important to me. And then my next step is actually, and this is something that one of my teachers in grad school always made us do, and I just find it really useful. I go through, and in my own notebook, I list every single given circumstance for my character. So I do the whole play, and I make sure that I know that I'm able to follow kind of the timeline that my character is living in. And from there, especially with classical texts, I start getting into the nitty gritty. I start scanning my text, and I'm a big fan of paraphrasing. So I actually paraphrase all of my text along with scanning it. And then I like to make what I call a rhetorical map, which is where I'm looking at the ways in which I'm using the language that I've been given to convince people of what I'm trying to get across.
How does it change once you get into the rehearsal room and you have other characters, actors speaking with you?
So anytime that we see Shakespeare in these contemporary times, we are always seeing a cut down script, right? Like it's so rare that you would ever see a full Hamlet would take you over 4.5 hours to perform, right? And most of them are averaging hopefully a little under 3. So when you get into the rehearsal room, my favorite part is actually sitting in a group of actors with the director and the stage manager and talking about what story we want to tell, because you have to cut things, right? So it becomes this negotiation and a collaboration of an entire group of people. What story do we want to tell, and how do we tell it? And that to me is one of the most exciting parts. And then I get to take that home and start tweaking my idea of what the story is and how the story that we are telling as a group is being kind of funneled through my lens of whatever character I'm playing.
You famously played Hamlet, and how did you prepare for that role? And was it different than your typical preparation, and why?
I generally go in pretty off book anyway, but for Hamlet, I went in, like our first read through, I was off book for everything but the last like 7 pages, I think, just because the size of the role is so big. I had to get it under me to be able to play with other actors in the space. Not everybody has to do that, but for a role that size, I felt like I needed to do that.
Maurice Jones is a New York-based film, television, and stage actor who's been on Broadway in St. Joan, The Cherry Orchard, Romeo and Juliet, and Julius Caesar. Most recently, he played the title role in Hamlet at the Chicago Shakespeare Theater, and spoke with us about what it was like to take on the iconic role.
So I'm interested in hearing, like, what is your regular process? Like, if you are going to approach, somebody gives you something else in the canon, say, even a big role like a Brutus or a young lover, a Romeo, something like that. But then to do Hamlet. So, like, what is the normal process, and then what was this one like?
I think a big part of what made doing Hamlet not the scariest thing in the entire world was making it into the same process as every other role, as every other character. This is something I sort of give to my students also. You know, when we hold these roles up on these pedestals upon which we're not worthy to cast our eyes, we can't ever really meet it face to face, and we'll always be reaching at something that will continue to feel unattainable. And so for me, approaching Hamlet, I've never played Brutus or a young lover for that matter of fact, but I think I would have to approach it the same way. There's given circumstances, the wants, the needs, the relationships, the history, grounding myself in the character's feet. Quite literally, I like to get into the acting shoes as early as I can to sort of feel what it feels like to stand on their ground and in their body. And you know, just a fierce and vigorous, rigorous attack of the language. What is at stake here? What is present in this language? What is the story that's unfolding on the page, and how can I service myself as the actor to tell that story the best? And whether that story is something vast like Hamlet, or something, you know, musical like August Wilson, or something sharp and acerbic like Pinter, it's all the same approach. It's that same attack. It's the same focus of getting to the heart of the story.
I think that's great. That's one of the things that we're talking about, is that you kind of demystify it in a way when you go, what does Hamlet want? It's that simple. What does it want? And the big thing for me that I'm always interested in is, where do you think Hamlet starts and where do you think he ends? What is the big arc? You know, if you can, I know there's a lot of things that change, but I'm just interested in.
Yeah, what a wonderful question. When I think about where Hamlet ends, the passage that comes to mind for me, pardon me for forgetting the actual language, the scene with Horatio, in which he says to him, "Let be." Yeah. And I think at that point we are witnessing a Hamlet who has resigned himself to let life go in a way that he was not able to at the beginning of this play. Right. So much is out of balance. We meet Hamlet when his world is entirely upside down. And he's someone who is grasping for a sense of normalcy and truth and sense out of a world that is refusing to make sense to him. And he tries to wrest control of those things and right his ship in a way that I think launches him into the behavior and the acts of the play. But by the end, coming back and having this talk with Horatio, knowing that he's about to go into this battle with Laertes and everything that's transpired over the last 4 acts, the opportunities to be avenged, the seeing of the ghost, the antic disposition, the death of Ophelia, the murder of Polonius, the fight with his mother, the ghost. I think I'm getting emotional thinking about it, which is surprising to me, but I think that Hamlet has found himself at a place where it's like, you know what? I can't have all the answers to everything. I don't know what is up and what is down, and maybe that's okay to look at that providence in the fall of a sparrow and just let it go and let it be. Whatever will come, will come. Yeah. I think that is the major arc, that sense of control and that search for balance that gets beautifully and gracefully let go of, all the way until he takes his last breath, which is the ultimate letting go.
And for the guy who's spoken for 4 hours to say, okay, it's silence from here on out. Yeah, it's a big. Yeah, I think that's a really great. I think to be is such a great word for us to kind of track. I found I end up talking a lot with people about is whether the ghost is real, whether Hamlet is mad, and how he feels about Ophelia.
We really discovered that what fueled us is that they are incredibly in love with each other, that they are, as the kids say, each other's person. Yeah. And we talked at length about this nunnery scene, as it's dubbed, aren't doing, and we thought about that scene in the beginning at least, as quite a quiet, difficult, heartbreaking breakup scene. Two people who are so desperately and dangerously in love and connected to each other,
That's great.
needing, for the sake of both of their humanities and sanities, to pull themselves apart from each other. I wanted to look into how difficult that is, because the language and even some of my instincts were, oh, this is combative, this is forceful, get out of here. I know that I'm being spied on. I can't stand this, I can't stand them, I can't stand you. But then I just dropped into how difficult that is to say to somebody
Yeah.
that you love. And I have to look at the language and choose to believe that there is love there and that he means it when he jumps on that grave at the end.
Also, just as a woman, to me the scene was never about overpowering her or you know, Hamlet certainly becomes enraged, I think, in that scene because he realizes that he has been betrayed, in our version at least. But the pain, for me, that scene was about the pain of being betrayed by someone that I love. And about the fact, but even starting that scene, I loved her so much, and I knew what I had to do. I knew what I had to do, and I knew that there was no happy ending to this relationship. And it's just, you know, it was such a painful scene to me that didn't end up manifesting itself in rage. It was rage at the world and at the fact that I was being asked to do this, and at the fact that she wasn't strong enough to not betray me. And you know, it was just a very different scene, I think, for both of us.
Can you expand on that a little bit more about how your gender, and if it didn't inform it, that's okay too, but how your gender informed how Hamlet was in public?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the biggest thing that my gender affected. I really do think was that it wasn't it for me was so rarely just about rage, or at least it did. I didn't want to just storm around the stage making fools of people, because that's kind of easy to do with Hamlet. Hamlet is incredibly intelligent, and Hamlet makes fun of people a lot. And so it's easy, I think, to kind of fall into that kind of sarcasm, particularly with Polonius. And I never wanted I wanted to hurt the people that hurt me.
When you were in the role, did you feel lonely?
Oh, yes. Well, yes, I did. I did. I felt lonely for a lot of reasons in that role. I was acutely aware of the fact that in the play Hamlet, you are surrounded by men of varying ages who have either played the role or wanted to be playing the role that you got. And they are judging your every move. And for me, that is doubly complicated because I'm in a room with other women feeling the need to represent that women can do this job as well as men. And so that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself that made me feel isolated from the women around me. And then a lot of pressure and judgment. And I don't think it was cruel judgment. I don't think they were trying to judge my work. But it was very isolating with the men as well.
You know, I think that's a really interesting question too. About did you ever think, oh, okay, I'm going to be a black Hamlet now? Do you know what I mean? Or like, did you just get to approach it the way you wanted to approach as an actor? Was there ever a tension there for you in rehearsal?
No. What a wonderful question. Thank you. There was never a tension, because the reality is I am a black Hamlet by virtue of being who I am. But what was fascinating is we had a very diverse cast. The actress playing my mother was black. The actress playing Ophelia was black. And what was paramount to me was to tell the truth of the character.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't interested in approaching it as the black Hamlet. But what was fascinating, Quinn, was the student matinees. when I would look out at these audiences of primarily Black and brown faces.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see them as I was interacting with them throughout the play, rapt with attention, leaning in, eyes wide, mouth gaped, hanging on my every word. This is not me patting myself on the back as far as my performance.
No, it's them seeing themselves, right?
Seeing themselves. It's
Yes.
the representational power of that. And in those moments, I was damn proud to be a Black Hamlet.
Yeah.